Welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick as always. We're recording on a Monday afternoon. We're going to talk all baseball today. We're going to talk about AL MVP, NL MVP, and then the World Series market, which is, I think, a little more unique perhaps than years past because there is a tier one team by itself, and we'll talk about how to price the Dodgers. But let's start off with the AL MVP market, which has gone back and forth between Mr. Shohei and Mr. Judge in years past. Obviously, Shohei is in the NL now, and so Aaron Judge is the plus 300 favorite. Bobby Witt, the runner-up last year, and the guy who's probably going to be everyone's kind of pick as they do their articles to preview the MLB season. He's plus 350. Gunnar Henderson, 6-1. Yordan Alvarez, 8-1. And then Corey Seager, Jose Ramirez, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. are next. Does anyone whet your appetite in this market, Drew?
Well, I will say that before I saw the prices, I was kind of watered up to see what we were going to get for Witt. And at plus 350, no thanks. That needs to be more like 6-1 to have any interest for me. I think Gunnar Henderson at 6-1 is also not enough, on meat on the bone there. I'll make a weak case for Corey Seager. I think in general, there's a path to victory for him with the kind of leading a Texans. I would say a Rangers offense that is going to be a pretty meaningful step forward this year. And he only had a little under 400 batted ball events last year, but certainly like his statistical makeup compiled just as good as Bobby Witt, and a small tier below the Judges and the Shohei Ohtanis of the world. So I think a full healthy season from him could be a little bit of a dark horse there, and 13-1 is enough of a price that I'm going to take a nibble. Outside of that, I was gonna say, is there anyone on the Red Sox who could be a factor? And maybe Rafael Devers. Well, they surely stepped in it with the bringing in Bregman, and no positional clarity there in Boston. So that's going to be a hot pass. And just in general, like I think the AL East is going to draw the most eyeballs, as it always does. And I think the idea that the Orioles are going to be any better than they were last year is tough for me to really defend. Meanwhile, I think the Yankees, path to victory in AL goes through the Bronx. So yeah, I'm having trouble coming up with a strong case for anyone longer than Corey Seager at 13-1 here.
Yeah, I don't mind Seager. I think he's got the upside. And the thing with Seager is that perhaps his median outcome isn't amazing because he's so beset with health, but the MVP is all about high-end outcomes, and he's got MVP type of high-end outcomes, given that 2 years ago he would have won MVP in a non-Shohei world in the AL had he stayed healthy, and he may have even won with the 120 games or whatever he played if Shohei didn't exist. So he has, a lot of ceiling. I think the thing with the AL is that, Shohei, whichever market he is in, always kind of defines whatever league he is in, has always defined the market because he takes up so much of the equity. And we'll talk about Shohei. I think it's a little underappreciated how Aaron Judge is basically the same thing. And Aaron Judge is just better than everyone. And has been now as a hitter really 3 years in a row where he wins MVP in 2022, hitting the 62 home runs. Last year, he was arguably even better, even though he hit 4 fewer home runs. The other stats, he narrowly cleared himself in WAR and in WRC Plus in 2024 compared to 2022. And then in 2023, he just got savagely unlucky with batted ball stuff where his ex-WOBA was 40 points higher than his actual WOBA, and he got hurt. He played 106 games. So he has really been kind of outside of Shohei, he has been pretty much head and shoulders above the rest of the world for 3 straight years. Now, the thing is, he's going to be 33 years old. And he is 6'7", 280 pounds, and is not. I would say he's not really built to potentially age gracefully, just given his frame, given his injury history. He has dealt with a lot of injuries over the journey, and so that is the fear. But if you tell me Aaron Judge is healthy all season, then I think that he should be more in like the pick against the field type of range. I just think he is that good. It is just the health concern, and then perhaps some regression with age. I'll throw a couple of names at you, some longer ones. These guys were going into last season were like half of their prices. Julio Rodriguez is 22-1 and Adley Rutschman is 50-1. Both those guys are coming off really down years.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago, when they were, I believe, first and second in American League Rookie of the Year, and they look like, perennial MVP candidates. Those guys are so young and so talented that I think there is still MVP upside in those two. So I don't think there's necessarily like a ton of meat on the bone at current prices, but those are the two guys who I would watch the closest the first couple of weeks. The other thing, too, with betting this market now is that it's not the best thing for account health if you're loading up on 6 weeks before the season. So I haven't bet into these markets yet, but those would be the guys that I would keep closest eyes on.
Okay. I was going to ask you about a different Oriole. Jordan Westbrook stand out to you in any way?
I don't think he's the thing. The Orioles have a lot of guys who have, in theory, MVP upside. They just haven't shown it for a long enough period of time. Jackson Holiday is probably not going to be this year, but at some point, presumably, he will show some MVP upside. Gunnar Henderson, who at one point last year, I priced him as the favorite to win.
Oh, really?
And then he cooled off substantially, but he'll be in the mix. But yeah, the Orioles are brimming with young candidates, and I wouldn't be surprised if both I put Rutschman and Henderson above Westberg. But
can I throw a little cold water on Judge, and you can refute this? He had Soto and a pretty effective Stanton in the lineup last year, so that you couldn't really pitch around him. Soto is now, he's still in New York, but he's no longer a Yankee. And Stanton is dealing with extreme pain in both elbows, Jay. Yes. Not a good sign for his effectiveness this year. Is there a world where he just gets the Barry Bonds treatment and is walked, to the degree that he just can't kind of keep up statistically with the other runners in this race?
Well, so firstly, it's funny. There was one book who I won't name that when the Stanton injury news came out, they turned off the World Series and American League pennant markets. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't. Giancarlo Stanton missing 4 weeks probably not going to move the needle too much to the outcome of the World Series. The thing with Judge is that we kind of saw this world where he didn't have Soto behind him, and he hit 62 home runs in 2022. Okay. So I'm not sure it matters. He might just be so good. And also the thing is that, the lineup specifically is worse than last year because they don't have Soto. I think the team overall is probably about the same level, but that's mainly because they upgraded the pitching with Max Fried and Devin Williams coming in to help the bullpen. You'd expect better health as well for Garrett Cole, given that he missed the first couple of months of last year. But the lineup is still solid. Like, they brought in Cody Bellinger, they brought in my man Paul Goldschmidt, who cost me a great deal of money when he won National League MVP a couple of years ago. But I think that they have enough in the lineup. Jazz Chisholm as well. I think they'll be able to, protect Judge to the bare minimum. And the thing is too, is that if you walk a lot, walks are good for your stats. Walks build up your WAR, they build up your OBP, obviously. So I think the Judge, not too concerned about the lineup protection aspect. I think he'll be okay on that front. I think it's more just, is he going to start to fall off at age 33, which is a viable concern? And is he going to get hurt because he's a gigantic human being?
Very fair. Okay. I won't lose faith then. And then we'll see if we can time the market and get back on the Aaron Judge train, because I do think that if there was one MVP like in football, I think Judge probably beats Shohei last year, even though he went 50-50.
Yeah, no, well, he absolutely should have. I think he would have as well. Like, Aaron Judge had one of the greatest. Aaron Judge's 11 WAR. He had one of the greatest seasons of all time. And the fact that, he plays the field, I think would have been a tiebreak against Shohei being a DH and just Judge lapping him in WAR. But we will never know. Judge, I wouldn't be rushing to back 3-1. It's just more that if he comes out in the first month of the season, the thing with Judge is he's so good. Like, Judge was horrific the first 6 weeks of last year, and then still all put up one of the great seasons of all time. He's just that good. And so if he comes out and just is Aaron Judge again from the start, then I wouldn't be surprised if he runs away with the market. But age 33, coming off an extended World Series run, more tread on the tires, would like to see him out there first. Okay, Saturday is your destination for the Premier League on NBC and Peacock. Don't miss Aston Villa face Cole Palmer and Chelsea as both clubs fight to stay atop the table. Kickoff is set for 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Okay, National League MVP Shohei Ohtani is the favorite at plus 175 as per usual. Juan Soto is plus 550. Fernando Tatis 8-1. Mookie Betts 13-1. Kyle Tucker, now a Cub, 13-1. And then Bryce Harper, Francisco Lindor, familiar faces in this market. They are next up. And then Ellie De La Cruz is 20-1. I would not be betting on Ronald Acuna Jr. at 22-1 because it looks like he's going to miss the first month of the season, which is effectively that's a death sentence in this market with this caliber of competition. Anyone tickle your fancy here, Drew?
I mean, I kind of want to make a case against Ohtani at this price. Ultimately, do we get to a moment in the season where this becomes the best bet on the board? Maybe. But Soto is a real threat in this market. Tatis is a real threat in this market. Lindor is a real threat in this market. I definitely was subject to lost sleep last September as Lindor was leading the Mets into the playoff chase. And I was like, man, is there a world where Ohtani fumbles the bag here and Lindor steals it on the back of sort of the New York centric bias? And I'm willing to listen to a Mets case here, as I do think that there are certainly some questions in general about the Dodgers meeting expectations. You look at them and they're like this Death Star of a organization, obviously, and the rightful favorites to win the World Series again. But there's a lot of iterations where what they do this regular season is going to feel like a step backwards. If he doesn't go 50-50 again, are we really dying to give him another MVP? If he is not as effective at the off the mound this year, does that hurt his case? There's a lot swirling in my head about the Dodgers just feeling like a little bit of they weren't quite as good as we were expecting, and in which case you could open the door for a Mets team that feels like it's coming.
Yeah, it's interesting to look back on that race with Ohtani and Lindor, because I will go to the grave thinking that if they had median outcomes the final 4-6 weeks of the season, I think Lindor hitting the home run to beat the Braves on the last day of the season to clinch the playoffs for the Mets, I think that might have delivered him MVP if all other outcomes were kind of created equal. But Lindor got hurt. He missed 10 games down the stretch, and Ohtani just went absolutely ballistic in the final month. He had his final 26 games. He had 10 homers, 16 stolen bases. He had 2.4 WAR to Lindor's 1.1. It just wasn't close in the end. But had median expectations would have had them neck and neck in terms of WAR. And I think that Lindor's story and playing the field and the Mets run and that final moment, I think would have made it at least very interesting, because a median outcome with 4-6 weeks to go was Shohei not getting to 50-50. And so Shohei not 50-50, Lindor median outcome as well. I think that Lindor may have stolen it, but we shall never know, because that never got tested because Shohei went away. I think,
thankfully, for me,
for you, yeah, I had a little Lindor. I was cheering for. Thank you. But I think with Shohei, who, any dissection of this market needs to start with what do you price Shohei fair, and to me the most. There's a lot of variability with Shohei, because what's he going to be like as a pitcher? Is he going to pitch 130 innings? If you told me that Shohei pitches if he pitches 100 innings, then I think he's probably just going to win MVP because he's too good of a hitter. Right now, Fangraphs, at least by Zips, they project Shohei Ohtani to lead the National League in WAR just as a hitter alone. Forget the pitching, and that's just as a DH. Now, they're projecting him for 42 stolen bases, and I think that this is the sneaky thing with Shohei is that now that he's a pitcher, now that he's kind of proven to himself that he can break records and steal a million bases, is he actually going to go out of his way to steal, 40, 50 bases, or is he just going to kind of go back into what he was, where he was more like, 20 steals, that kind of range? And I think that as silly as that is, because the difference between 20 and 42 stolen bases in terms of actual value and how it contributes to MVP is not that substantial. But if he's not contributing a ton on the mound, then I think to win MVP as a DH, you need that extra differentiator. The thing is, and the reason why Shohei won last year was one, obviously, because of the historical aspect and the 50-50, but it was because he never really felt like a DH. Because when you think of DHs, you think of guys like, Nelson Cruz or whatever, big lumbering guys who just stand at the plate and hit. Shohei didn't feel like that because he was adding this element of speed on the base path and he's Shohei Ohtani and all the other kind of mysticism around him. But if he's not contributing a ton on the mound, he's not stealing bases, then I think that the DH penalty will apply to him more so than it did last year. But if he's going to pitch, even if he's just like 80 to 100 innings and he's adding 2-3 WAR on the mound and he's a 6 WAR hitter as a DH, which he's so good as a hitter that seems like a reasonable expectation at this point, it is hard to topple him. But if the pitching doesn't take as much and there's any setbacks there and he's more like 50 to 60 innings and the hitting is, as it was, but there's no steals, then I think it becomes a lot more wide open. The guys who I wouldn't bet on in this market, no interest anymore in Mookie Betts, who I think is actually materially changed as a player, where he's getting less pitches to hit, and he didn't adjust at all after his hot start last year. And I want to see if he has actually made those adjustments, and he's getting older. Soto plus 550. I don't think Juan Soto is 4 times more likely to win than Lindor. If I was backing a Met, it would be Lindor at 20 to 1.
Really?
Really? Yeah, I think that Fangraphs have him as the third projected in the NL in WAR. And the thing I like with Lindor is that if he outperforms Soto, which is a slight dog, you'd project Soto to be better median outcomes, but it's probably like a half WAR gap projected for Lindor to overcome. If he outperforms Juan Soto and is the guy on the Mets, and they make the playoffs and they're really good, and after he finished second last year, Francisco Lindor is the guy that everyone is going to want to vote for if it is a close race, I think. So Lindor at 20 to 1 is compelling to me. There's no one else really at price that leaps out at the moment. Does anyone talk to you, Drew?
Well, I didn't know where you were going to go with this. I'm shocked that you think Lindor over Soto, because everything that I look at.
Yeah.
What's that? At price.
At
price. Yeah, at price. And again, the 4 times the price, that is a huge factor, surely. But just the Soto versus Ohtani is sort of what really, there's so much gravity with those two guys in this market. I kind of feel like the big question is, should they be closer, or is this reasonable gap? And every projection that I'm seeing, even Zips, their batting WAR is expected to be pretty dang close. You look at sort of the baseball savant stuff as far as their exit velocity and their barrels last year, and Shohei Ohtani and Juan Soto are, you squint hard enough, they're the same guy at the plate. It is not that different. And I think that the one thing that's lost a little bit in the idea that Ohtani, now he's going to be pitching this year, so it's even more slam dunk that he's going to win. Well, when he was pitching for the Angels, he was like a 600 plate appearance a year guy. I know that Dodgers are a smarter organization, and so maybe just batting him first, he'll still kind of be in the 650 to 700 range. But he had 731 plate appearances last year, and to me, a lot of it was just he just didn't take a lot of days off. He played 159 games. If he is out there pitching, there may just be more days that he just gets rest, and so by definition, his plate appearances could be down, and that could affect ultimately his counting stats. I think your point about the steals is very, very on the head. I would be truly blown away if he threatens 50 again this year. And again, the swirl of comparing his batting numbers, the raw numbers, the people who aren't really digging in, looking at what he did last year to this year, it's going to feel like a step backwards. And I to me, at least, there's a world where Soto with a triple ground kind of threat could steal this thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think Soto is the second most likely player to win, certainly, and he warrants being second favorite in the market. I just think that given that the WAR projection is not so far ahead of Lindor, and Lindor being 4x his price, Lindor is a bit more appealing to me. I think with Shohei, who is still such a ridiculous phenomenon, like I'm just trying to navigate to his pitching projections on Fangraphs, and there's a whole other page to himself because he's Shohei Ohtani. Like Fangraphs project him at 2.5 pitching WAR in 110 innings. And if he's going to do that, and you mentioned that he and that Ohtani and Soto are projected for effectively the same hitting WAR, but like if Ohtani is also a 2.5 WAR pitcher, it's just the tiebreak. And the thing is Ohtani. The only season that has beaten Ohtani for MVP since he became Shohei Ohtani was Aaron Judge hitting 62 home runs. And that's what it took to take down Shohei Ohtani for MVP. The other 3 years around that, he won, one in the NL and 2 in the AL, obviously. And so the past 3 years I've been against Shohei in this market. It's not a good experience as well. Absolutely miserable on all fronts. And in 2022, I took him down. Well, Aaron Judge took him down, but I had Judge 40-1 then. But the other two, I just got trucked. Particularly 2023. At least Lindor gave me a fight, but 2023, I was going to war with Corey Seager and Marcus Semien and just didn't sniff it. Shohei missed the last 6 weeks of the season or something and still won going away, which he deserved to. But yeah, I'm kind of done just being against Shohei in this market. Like I just kind of think he should just be picked from now on until we see that there's any health concerns, because he's just so much better than everyone else, and he's probably the greatest baseball player to ever play the game, and he's 30, gonna be 30 years old for this season, so the market goes through him. One other thing I wanted to touch on before we move to the World Series market is this idea of like market entry and timing. And a lot of times you can, afford to, I guess not really in the Shohei world, but a lot of times in these baseball awards markets, sometimes you can bet on the guy at their highest value points, later on in the season. You don't have to back these markets preseason. And, Luis Heel with 4 weeks to go was 100-1. Gunnar Henderson midseason the year before in that market was 40-1. Guys do come from the clouds. I would say that I kind of reject the notion in general that there is an optimal time just overall to enter a market. Like at any point of time, the 100% equity needs to be distributed among the market. And it's just whether you're better or worse at pricing based on whether there's more information or less information available. And then it's really just about pricing acumen. I will say that in general, I think that it is harder to price these markets preseason because there's 162 games of remaining variance to price as opposed to 80 or 40 or 30 or whatever. And that is just naturally harder to do. It's much easier to price these markets if there's only 6 guys left viably and with 2 months to go than it is to be pricing the entire league. But I think the idea that, you need to, or you absolutely should sit out these markets because there will, very likely be a better price entry point at some point during the year. I just don't really believe in that. Like I bet on Aaron Judge to an MVP in 2022 at 40-1 in the first month of the season, I think. And I don't think he ever got to a bigger price. Shohei has pretty much just been each of these years, like his highest price point has basically been like the first day of the season. And then he just walked it in from not quite last year because
last year there was that, yeah.
Mookie was favorite at the start, but his highest price point Shohei would have been, if not preseason, then a month into the season. And like Kevin O'Connell for Coach of the Year was 20-1 before the year. He never drifted from that price. Sometimes guys just go wire to wire. Tyler Hero, 6th man of the year, was 30-1, just walked it in. John Morant was 40-1, most improved player that same year, wire to wire. So I don't think that there is ever like, you need to sit out, you need to not sit out. It's just you need to price the market at any given point in time. And there's just more variance depending. Usually there's more variance the earlier it is.
Okay, I'm not one to argue with you because you've made a lot more money in the awards markets than I have, but I got to push back on one thing, and this bit me last year. Acknowledged, hand up. Scooble went wire to wire, but Cy Young to me feels different just because of the sort of sample you're getting a month into the season is not really indicative of what pitchers being asked to do throughout the balance of the season, and it can be, you're looking at an outsized. You're looking at an outsized effect of a very small sample once it's all said and done.
Yep. No, I do. I agree with that. And I think there are some exceptions, like you mentioned, Scooble. For years, I was just backing Jacob deGrom preseason to win Cy Young at 7-1 or whatever, just on the idea that his median outcome is just better than everyone else. He's just better. He's a better pitcher than everyone else. But I do agree in general that the market, its tendencies with pricing that award tends to be that it just doesn't bake in the blow-up potential for a pitcher and just the natural variance that comes with being a pitcher and being exposed to batted ball luck and, home run, fly ball, getting screwed by that, skewing and violently in one direction. And then also just the injury risk. Like Jacob deGrom, one of the biggest rort markets of all time was 2021. Jacob deGrom at mid-season is minus 1,000 to win Cy Young. It's just like, it's completely insane. And at the time he was minus 1,000, he was on the injured list because he was dealing with something. It's like, we've got an injured pitcher who's minus 1,000 with half the season left, and Corbin Burns, Walker Buehler, Max Scherzer, Zach Wheeler, all those guys were like 20-1, 30-1. And you could just back all five of them or whatever and get like plus 400, plus 500 on not Jacob deGrom, the super injured guy who is currently injured. And then like 2 weeks later, he was ruled out for the season. So I agree in a nutshell that, yeah, that is the one where I often, like year after year, it feels like I'm just going against the mid-season favorite in that market because they're baking in that. And often the guys do go wild, like Garrett Cole the year before in the AL. Like I backed almost everyone in the market who was close outside of Cole, just on the basis that the market was was baking in the idea that Cole was just definitely going to continue on his current track, whereas he was going to have to navigate he had like 15 starts left, and if he'd had 4 blowups instead of 2 or something, then it's a completely different market. So yeah, there's a lot of variance with pitching, and so yeah, there's not many pitchers who I'm like backing in the 12-1 range preseason for Cy Young, certainly.
Cool.
Okay. Watch the biggest names in sports talk, including Mike Florio, Dan Patrick, Dan Lebitard, and Matthew Berrios. They cover the biggest moments on and off the field each weekday on the NBC Sports Now channel. It is now available on Peacock and free on most streaming platforms. Learn more at NBCSports.com/now.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's close out, talk about the World Series market. The Dodgers are plus 250 after signing everyone on planet Earth who is good. The Yankees, my beloved Yankees for now until I back Liverpool to beat them or whatever. They're 8-1. The Braves are plus 950. The Phillies 11-1. Mets 12-1. And then the Orioles, the Astros, the Red Sox follow them. What do you think of this Dodgers price?
It's just crazy. We have 162 games yet to be played. I cannot believe this number. And I get it. Like the NL West is pretty pudding soft. They should, have a relatively clean path. And they do have, as you mentioned, the best player on planet Earth in Ohtani, kind of anchoring that lineup. So it's tough to really scream hard against them. I'm more looking kind of down the board though for other opportunities here. And number one, I think the AL East is the wrong order. NL East, excuse me. NL East is the wrong order. I would put Mets over Phillies over Braves as opposed to Braves over Phillies over Mets. And as I look at the AL, like I'm kind of surprised there's not a closer gap between Yankees and Orioles right now. Yankees 3-1 to win the AL, Orioles 6-1. And I guess I just need your opinion on, do you think there will be organizational pressure considering how big of a flop the Orioles have had the last 2 years to actually go get pitching? Because it was a bit of an embarrassment to have this incredible of a nucleus of young hitting talent on this roster, and your big offseason moves are you go and you sign 41-year-old Morton and a 35-year-old player who I couldn't even really tell you.
Tyler O'Neill?
Not even O'Neill. It was I believe a Japanese player.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like your big move, 41-year-old Morton, you're giving him $15 million. 35-year-old Sagano, you're giving him $13 million. Okay. All right. Good luck. It does not feel to me like this, this lineup can support a World Series winning team. But, we would have said that around August about the Dodgers, rotation last year. So do you feel like there will be organizational pressure to get real arm talent here? Is there any young arm talent that I don't know about? And, or does it matter that is this just a good enough offense potentially that they could carry an AL that otherwise looks pretty weak now?
I think they can win in their current iteration. They're good enough to clear the bar where it is certainly viable should they get into the playoffs so that they can make a run, because the offense is just that good and the pitching staff, while uninspiring, like Eflin and Grayson Rodriguez are excellent. We'll see with Grayson Rodriguez and his health. Charlie Morton, he's 41 years old. It is what it is. Kramer and Sagano, ideally, you'd have better options in case one of those top three goes down. But the thing is like the Orioles are kind of the worst version of the Oklahoma City Thunder, where it's like, why aren't you guys making a move? Like, you're good enough right now to go and win everything. And I get that the Orioles made the move for Corbin Burns last year and then he walked, but yeah, he walked. It doesn't mean that you get to just rest on the laurels of getting Corbin Burns a year ago. You need to get someone to replace him. So I think a very disappointing offseason for the Orioles. All of these AL East teams are uninspiring to me. Not because they're uninspiring in a nutshell, but because they have to go up against the other four AL East teams, because all of those teams are really good, I think. Okay. Even like the Blue Jays and the Rays, who would be thought of uniformly as the fourth and fifth teams in those divisions. Like the Blue Jays are all in. Like they have Vlad Guerrero and Bo Bichette becoming free agents. This is like the last hurrah for the team, and they've gone out of their way in free agency to add a lot of guys, and kind of, they're kind of going all in to be an 85-win team, which I'm not really sure where it's going to get them, but still makes them good. And then the Red Sox adding Bregman on top of Garrett Crochet. Like this is just now a really good team. It's just their issue is that they play in the same division as, particularly the Yankees and the Orioles, but then also the Rays, whose rotation has top three in the league upside if those guys stay healthy, particularly McClanahan. But yeah, that division is just a mess. I'd say what I look for in these markets and what I find is often mispriced is that there isn't enough equity accorded to ease of path to getting a playoff spot and particularly a bye. And that often comes with just having a weak division. And my favorite bet annually for a time was when the Cleveland Guardians, this is more like 5 years ago, when their teams weren't great, but they were still rolling to the AL Central. And this was back when if they won their division, they'd only have to win 2 playoff series. But because the team was uninspiring and like losing. The Guardians would lose like 5 games in a row, and their AL pennant price would drift from like 10-1 to 15-1. And it's like, well, but they're still minus 10,000 to win the division. Like nothing has changed. Like absolutely nothing has changed. And you were getting 15-1 on the Guardians to win 2 playoff series when, you know, basically no one is bigger than plus 200 in a playoff series. And so and the Guardians never won the AL pennant in that era when I was betting on them. It was still just a complete misprice. I don't think there's anything that bad at this point, but the teams that I would look at in that ilk would be the Cubs, who are minus money to win the NL Central, and yet to win the NL are in the 15-1, 17-1 type of range, which I think is a little bit big. That is a team also that is not necessarily all in, but they traded for Kyle Tucker and he's probably not going to come back. So they are pretty invested to win this season, and the rest of the division is very uninspiring. And then the other thing that I'd say about these markets is that the Dodgers are such a behemoth, and the Braves are also potentially a behemoth. And there are worlds where we get to the end of the season and the 4 best teams in baseball are the Dodgers, Braves, Mets, and Phillies. Like that doesn't seem wholly unreasonable to me. And so if I was backing an AL team in an outright, and obviously the math is going to vary based on the price, but for the most part, World Series prices are just 2x your pennant price. And I would say that, you know, the AL teams on average are going to be dogs in the World Series. So I'd much rather back, you know, the Astros at, 8-1 to win the pennant than at, 16-17-1 to win the World Series. Because I think on average, they'd be dogs in the World Series.
That all checks out to me. The problem, I guess, with some of this right now is that they're typically what you're kind of alluding to of preying on weak divisions. There's just the weak divisions are still pretty clustered at the top.
Yes, that's the issue.
Like they're weak, but they're clustered. There's really only, I would not say that the Angels and the Athletics are as bad as they've been in years past. And in general, the AL West looks pretty clustered. Rangers, Mariners, Astros right now, based on Fangraphs projections, at least only a game separates those 3 teams. Now, I don't agree with that personally, but that's the different conversation, I guess. Your AL Central, you got a nice 3-game gap for the Cubs. So that was a fun shout. But I was kind of hoping you would see something in the AL Central too, because you do have the White Sox who are truly, non-competitive. And so there should be some win padding if you can have teams take a step forward there. But only 1 game separates Royals, Tigers, Twins at the top. So tricky to thread the needle with a future this year. I was just going to try to prey on the Orioles if you thought that there was a world where after getting swept in the playoffs 2 years in a row and having a nucleus that is this good offensively, if there is just the patience is over, where they're going to be a little bit more aggressive making moves for arms in the regular season. So other than that, I don't know if there's a way in.
They should have had that urgency last year where they were coming off a disappointing playoff exit as well, and they were chasing the Yankees for the division, and they just didn't happen. And so I think that is just a very, very conservative organization that really doesn't want to endanger, this long term, just kind of winning 87 to 89 games every year and being in the wild card mix with a 25% chance at the division or whatever, and just having that be the sustained model as opposed to, disrupting and shifting the equity a little bit more towards the now, which I think they should have done the previous 2 years. We'll see how good the team is this year. Last thing before we sign off, on the Dodgers price, which I do think is compelling from an odds making perspective. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. It's just an interesting kind of thought experiment to be like, okay, what are the Dodgers going to be in given series on average? Are they just going to be like minus 200 to the power of 3? Like, is it just going to be 3 series where they're about minus 200 range and on average? Because this team, the thing with the Dodgers that is interesting to me is that they were already so good that these signings, I'm not sure they significantly increase the team's ceiling. What they do though is they just provide insulation against health that no team has really ever had before. Like if their top 3 starters go down, they're still fine. Like if their top 5 starters go down, then it's like, all right, well, then we've basically just got the team that we had last year that won the World Series. They're just so loaded across the board. And yeah, like with, if they lose Freddie Freeman or Mookie Betts or Shohei Ohtani as a hitter, then that will hurt a lot. But those guys are hitters. Like hitters are much more of a health surety than pitchers, but they've just got so many pitchers now, that so many elite pitchers that, yeah, if Tyler Glasnow's elbow plays up again, great. Like then we have Yamamoto, Snell, and Sasaki as the top three in the playoffs. And like they didn't have really their only reliable pitcher starter in the playoffs last year that you felt good about was probably Yamamoto. Jack Flaherty was very up and down. Walker Buehler was very up and down. And just to have that top four of Yamamoto, Snell, Glasnow, Sasaki is just completely insane. They have probably the best bullpen in the sport as well, maybe the best lineup. Like it is kind of, it's boring in a way. It's not boring because it's baseball and even the best team. Once you strip out the margin, the market's saying this team has like a 25% chance to win the World Series. Brian Cashman was talking in his press conference the other day or something that, the Dodgers are the odds-on favorite to win the World Series. Everyone knows that, which again, misusage of the term odds-on, which means you're greater than 50%, which I don't think he actually believes, and is just saying that because everyone says that when they mean just the favorite. But they're not the odds-on favorite, and there's like a 75% chance they're not going to win the World Series. So all the doom and gloom is a little bit overstated, as opposed to the Warriors when they signed Kevin Durant and were immediately like minus 150 and 60% to win the championship. That was different. But yeah, I'm coming all for it. Like, let's have a villain. Let's have the Cubs beat them in the NLDS or something. America will get behind their opponents. But yeah, they are clearly the best team in the league.
Yeah. Their path last year was pretty tough, and ultimately they came through cleanly. And they've had years in the past where they were clearly the better team and they lose to the Diamondbacks 3-0. So we've seen crazier things. And, just as you kind of look at sort of projections of who can score runs this year, the Diamondbacks are up there, man. There's a world where the Dodgers aren't getting a bye.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks would probably be the best team in the AL Central. And maybe the AL West as well. And certainly the NL Central. It's just that is the bad part of the Dodgers' supremacy. Is like, if you're a fan of the Rockies, you're just screwed if you're a fan of the Rockies anyway. But if you're a fan of the Diamondbacks, Giants, or Padres, you're just like, well, what's the point? Like, we're just going to go all out for a wild card every year for the foreseeable because this team is such a juggernaut. But once we actually get into the playoffs, then the beauty of baseball is these 3, 5, 7 game series. Anything can happen within reason. So someone will probably take them down and it will be celebrated. All right, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, we'll see you soon.